Hello and welcome to Expat American. Today I am in Kolomenskoye Park in Moscow, which used to actually be an ancient Russian city. And the question for today, as I wander around this park exploring, how old is Russia? No, it's not the largest log cabin in the world, although it may be. But this is actually a reconstruction of a palace that actually was torn down and rebuilt multiple times. Now, this village was called Kolomna, and it wasn't in Moscow. Moscow has grown to the point where it is now a part of Moscow. It's actually off the Moscow River. And this palace was referred to one time as the 8th wonder of the world. That would have been not this version, but an older version that has been since torn down. You could get lost in here. It's just a maze of a palace. 250 rooms at one point. I'm not sure if this version has 250 rooms. And the first mention of this village in history is 1339, so it was that long ago. Here's a little green space, but just imagine that, Americans, Westerners. So the United States was founded, the United States of America, more than 400 years after people were already living here. So a couple of videos back, I did the newest park in Moscow. So my guess is this would be the oldest park in Moscow. But believe it or not, this structure is not the crowning structure of this park. We'll slowly make our way over there now. So how old is Russia? That depends on how you want to cut it. I am Anglo-Saxon, meaning my race as a white guy is specifically an Anglo-Saxon white guy. Russians are Slavic, they are Slavs. And the modern word slave comes from Slavic people. So you can only imagine how hard times must have been for Slavic people, now modern day Russian people, in ancient history. But if you're looking for a hard date, the first Russian Slavic state that was formed was called Kievan Rus, Rus as in Russian, and that was in 879, and that is currently the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, that area. So although I'm considered a white person and my wife is considered a white person, we're actually technically two different races. So from what I understand, reading through history and talking to different Russians while living here, is roughly around 1325, I believe it is, the Russian Orthodox Church moved their home base to Moscow. And that's how Moscow started to become the capital of Russia. Because from what I understand, Kievan Rus, or Kiev, just topographically, was not in a good defendable position. It had been sacked too many times, so the Russian people relocated their home base to Moscow to have a better fortified country. So in 1721, Russia had grown in territory so much that it officially became an empire, and this is still over 50 years before America declares its independence from Great Britain. And so here we have come to the Moscow River. And the center of Moscow would be that way. I am fast forwarding rapidly through history here and probably skipping a lot of details that you should read up on. Details that I've skipped may even offend Russians. I mean no offense, I'm just trying to squeeze everything into a 10-minute video here. But then between 1917 and 1922, the Russian royal family is taken out of power and murdered, and the Soviet Union begins, which is an atheist state comprised of Russia, and there are other countries that they've taken over, and it also includes the area which is now Ukraine, that was originally the capital of their country. Now here is the centerpiece of this park, this giant Lord of the Rings looking building. So keep in mind, during this time, 1917, 1922, the US is only now starting to become a world power, starting to head into the roaring 20s. Looks like that would be the main gate into this place. I must have come through on the side. So this is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was built by an Italian architect in 1532. So that would be shortly after Christopher Columbus discovered America. The first leader of Soviet Union, which was the collection of countries including Russia, Lenin, whose tomb we passed by in the Red Square video, he encouraged the different countries, different states in the Soviet Union to, be different. And he actually encouraged the Ukraine state in the Soviet Union to have and develop its own language, believe it or not. This is actually like a beer garden in summer. So they're selling beer, obviously, and shashlik and other yummy snack type foods. So I just got a nice hot drink from that kiosk behind me. This, I've mentioned before, is called Glentwein. I believe it's a German red wine, and it's served hot and spiced in wintertime to keep people warm. It's too hot, I can't sip it. Here are some more kiosks. Let me see if I can drink it this time. Not exactly my cup of tea. It is nice. I like red wine, but I like dry red wine, and this is, because it's spiced, it's sweeter. Anyway, super fast forward again to 1990. The Soviet Union dissolves. Russia becomes its own country again, and all the other countries that were part of the Soviet Union become their own country, including now the Ukraine, which was once where the Russian people had come from, which now is its own country and has its own language. That was not a zombie or a Baba Yaga witch that you heard in my video. That was just a happy Russian man that probably had too much Glentwein. Anyway, look at this. This is an old Russian church that was actually not originally here. They moved it here, I believe, in pieces. So I just tried going in, and they are varnishing the inside, giving it a new glaze coat. I can only imagine how hard you have to work at keeping these structures from falling apart, because they're wood and they're outside. But just imagine the inside looks like the outside, except you're in a box type room. Here is a little state fair type of park area, which is open in summer and not open right now. But I find all this history just totally fascinating. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, it can get boring when you're just thinking about the numbers, but if you think of it in terms of other things, like when stuff happened in America, when stuff happened in Russia, the fact that the foundation of the first Russian state, Kievan Rus, it's actually closer to Jesus' birth than to our time right now. I mean, that's just incredible to think about. So, how old is Russia? I think I very, very roughly answered the question for you, and hopefully this will inspire you to go do your own research and read up on it some more and decide for yourself how exactly things happened according to history. If you like this video, click like, subscribe, ring the bell notification. And if you'd like to see more, click on this video up here where we'll be going beyond Red Square.